So this is Infinite Spotting Overview.
All right. Hello, everyone. So we'll be going over the body overview. And so to start off with, we have the bots section. So right now, the main bots on the market are Refract and Stellar IO. The reason why we chose these two bots is because it basically covers all the sites that you need for botting. For Refract, it supports five sites: Amazon, Target, Walmart, Best Buy, and Apple. And it's basically the best spot for all five sites. And then the reason why we have Stellar is because Stellar is basically a support bot. Stellar covers all the um, sites on the screenshot here, and it's probably the best spot on the market so far for Pokemon Center, Costco, Sam's Club, and Amazon. And I know there's a lot of international people in Infinite, and then Stellar covers sites for sites outside of the United States, like the UK, things like that. Um, and so the reason why we're using bots is because manual users are very hard to cop inventory, and bots will allow us to cop more inventory at a much faster rate. Um, but it comes at a very decent cost. Based on my understanding right now, Refract initial cost is $350 for 3 months, and then after that is $50 a month. And then Stellar has quarterly and annual plans, but they release promo codes very often. And even for past promo codes, it allows you to get like 20-30% off, which is really nice. All right, so here are all the botting resources that you require to bot the sites. So we require proxy, server, and accounts. Proxy are a resource that you have to use for botting. It's because proxy um, allows you to mask your IP address. And there's different types of um, proxies. There's ISPs, there's data center, and there's residential. The reason why I didn't put data center on here is because data center um, proxy isn't something we use anymore because it's pretty crappy right now. So right now we basically only use ISP and residential. We do recommend a combination of both because it's probably like a backup plan if a ISP or a residential stops working. So what is an ISP? ISP is a proxy that is just as fast as a data center because it's hosted in a data center, and it masks as a residential proxy. So it's technically allow you to cop an item while behaving as a residential home. And then what's the difference between ISP and residential? Residential is a proxy plan. So unlike ISP where you pay per proxy per month, residential you pay per gigabyte usage. So it doesn't really expire on you, but residential is much slower than ISPs. Normally on my local station, ISP um, speed is around 200 millisecond, and then residential can be like 500 millisecond all the way to like 1,000 millisecond. But residential basically will never get banned. They're premium. And then server is really optional. Server for sites is really based on your preference, but server is really recommended because it really speeds up um, and then increases the quality of our proxy. A server plus the ISP combination, for example, on my local station is 200 millisecond, but if you use a ISP on a server, I can get all the way down to 200 millisecond, which is extremely fast. And it's really recommended because sites like Walmart has like queue system. You need to use these two combinations to join queue fast. And then accounts. Some sites require accounts, some don't, like Pokemon Center. Um, but for other sites, it's basically all required. And then, of course, there's good and bad accounts, aged and new accounts that I'll be going over for each individual sites. So the next site is the first site we'll be going over is Best Buy. Currently, the best spot on the market is Refract. The proxy that's recommended is ISP because it's heavily preferred. Resys is more difficult to cop the item with just because it's slightly slower. Server is preferred, but it is recommended because it's allow you to check out faster, add to cart faster, things like that. Um, there's the jig section. Emilio will be go over the jig section. It allows you, so jigging is a way to allow you to change up your address because every single site that we know so far really looks at your address. They don't want to ship multiple orders to the same address just so that you can resell or things like that. So the pros of Best Buy is that Best Buy has tons of stock and it's very easy to make accounts manually because Best Buy doesn't really care if your accounts are new, if your accounts are old. Um, but right now, Best Buy isn't the best site right now, is because they stopped really just releasing good products to resell. Back then they were doing like 2 drops per month, and then 1 drop a month, and then now they're doing like 1 drop every 2 months. And then they can be very picky with cards and virtual credit cards or VCCs. All right, the next site is Target. Target is a very decent site because it basically drops 2 to 4 times a week with really, really good items that you can cop and resell. I've seen people making a lot of money on Target, but you have to be very careful because Target does do account bans. They do device bans. They also do address bans. Address bans are normally temporarily. Account bans, that's really, we are not sure on if they do ever unban accounts. Normally, we just create new accounts and then just move on. But they do ban devices, so you got to be very careful. Don't overrun um, accounts per address. It's recommended to do 2 accounts per address, just because Target is very, very picky and they can ban you very fast. And then Target is very picky because it uses your proxy to generate cookies. And then cookies are used to add to cart, cookies are used to check out. And it really depends on the quality of your proxy to farm premium cookies. So that's why it's always recommended to use ISPs to farm cookies. You can use, however, ISP or residential to check out, up to you. But server isn't recommended. Do not use a server on Target just because Target uses your device to um, check out and it looks at your device. So if you're running on a server, you're technically just running for declines. Yep. All right. All right. So the next site is Walmart. Walmart drops a ton of stock. It's probably the best site for reselling at the moment just because the amount of stock they drop every single week. Normally, Walmart restocks every Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern time, and they drop just insanely amount of stock. So if you want to make money reselling wise, if you want, just focus on Walmart and then just, cop as many as you want, as you can, I guess. So for Walmart, Walmart's a bit different because Walmart has a queue system and you need to use ISPs to enter the queue fast. That's why I said on here server is highly recommended because if you use ISP plus a server combo, it allows you to enter queue very, very fast and then check out fast because if you're slow and use residential, you might not join as fast as other people running bots. And normally on Walmart, manual is very difficult to cop anything unless you're on a page right away. That's why bots are always recommended. And for the bots recommended for Walmart right now is Refract. And Refract is probably the best bot, just a bit expensive. And then Walmart requires age accounts. Um, if you create accounts right now and then use it to bot Walmart, you will just be running for declines because I've tested a bunch on Walmart, and new accounts are basically all the clients, they're just going to cancel you. Even when I use old accounts that are probably like 4 or 5 years ago that I created, I still have like a 50, 60% survival rate and then 40% cancel rate. When I first started, I had like 10% survival rate and 90% cancel rate. So that's pretty difficult. Walmart is a very, very um, picky site. It cancels a lot. So you gotta do um, a bunch of orders in order to make a very big profit. But I've seen people making a lot of money on Walmart. Sometimes if you have a really, really good drop, you can make 10K, you can make 5K, but you can make a lot of money on Walmart.
Okay, so next we have Amazon. Honestly, this site used to be good. They used to drop products for MSRP, but nowadays they have been dropping at prices over MSRP that cut into your margins super heavily. But yeah, so the best spots are and Refract. And then Amazon, you're supposed to use ISPs just because they're very strict on proxies as well. Kind of like Target, where you need premium proxies for this site. And then Amazon, you don't really need jigs as well. Yeah, obviously, you could do light jigs, and I'll explain what that means in a second. Um, and then, yeah, on Amazon, they do drop often, but like I said, they drop over MSRP, so it's a little difficult to even get anything from here. And if they drop at retail, um, you know, it, it's pretty uncommon. So honestly, I wouldn't pay any mind to this site, but I figured, or yeah, we figured to have just this on the site just to cover everything. Okay, so next we have Pokemon Center. Personally, this is my favorite site just because the profit margins on this site are, they're the greatest per product. And then the best spot at the moment is Stellar. Um, you need ISPs for this site. People normally use Resis as well, but I personally just use ISPs and it's worked fine for me. Um, Sometimes you would get banned, and then there's this thing called Data Dome ban, which is the protection that they use on their site. And sometimes you would get that ban depending on that if that proxy is bad or whether they just flag that proxy. Because Pokemon Center is pretty random with banning proxies, but again, like their bans are, I would say 2 hours max. Um, but yeah, so for Pokemon Center, you do need jigs, and like I said, I'll go over that what a light jig means. Um, and then Pokemon Center, like I said before, has the highest margins. So we have the Pokemon Center ATBs, which you can make the most money, like the absolute best product you could get on Pokemon. Guaranteed, I would say each ETB would be a 2x. Uh, so retail would be $60, resale would be 100 to, up to $300. It really depends on what they drop. Even they also drop older sets, which is also why I really like this site because you never know what they're going to drop. So it's always a surprise, and a lot of the time it is profitable. And they drop multiple products as well. But the only problem with this site is that they do they're super picky with the cards. And we've done a lot of research on what cards work, how many addresses you're allowed to use per per profile. Um, so yeah, it's just really hard, and you need to kind of get the hang of it. And once you get the hang of it, it can be super profitable. And it feels very I don't know. It's just fulfilling once you figure it out. And then, another con is that they're super random on drops. They drop from Monday to Friday, but typically it's on Tuesday, Thursday, from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. CST, which is about like mm, 11 a.m. to up to 2 p.m. EST. And Stellar recently added a feature where you don't necessarily need to be at your PC to solve captchas due to their one-click captchas. And what this means is that you don't have to solve and click on the boxes that you normally would have to on a CAPTCHA. Stellar would just I don't know what they do, but they just have this thing where you can not be at your PC and solve CAPTCHAs. Um, okay, and then yeah, so there's other sites like Costco. Again, they're another site that's super picky with proxies. The best thing about Costco, in my opinion, is that the price per pack is the lowest you're ever going to get. So, for example, they recently dropped a product called it was some black and white Pokemon stuff. But the price per pack was about like $3, and the resale is about like $5, $6 per pack. So yeah, the margins are very good on Costco. And the only con about Costco, I would say, is that they drop, you know, once every 2 months, 3 months. Just really depends on what they plan on dropping. And then membership is required. Um, Again, they have super, super fast shipping, which is great if you want to sell fast. And we'll go over how to sell stuff as well later on. And then we have Sam's Club. Same as Costco, you need memberships. It's a little cheaper than Costco because Costco membership can range from $60 all the way up to like $120 for membership, but you can get two quote unquote profiles or two quote unquote users that uh, under that membership, which is nice. Um, and then there's other sites like Shopify, which I don't normally buy anymore. I used to when I did sneakers, but not anymore. Okay, and then like Eric said before, jigging is basically making it seem like you are different people sending it to different addresses. Because, like he said before, you can't expect the site to get fulfill all your orders that are going to one address because it's just going to look like you're a reseller. So our objective here is to not seem like a reseller as well as not seeming like the same person. So that's why we use different names, different phone numbers, and the phone number could be random as well. Um, we use a catch-all, which we can change the information on the front of the app. So yeah, so over here you can see that I highlighted the jig that is required on the following sites. So here we have 123 John Doe Street. This is our plain address, no jig, nothing. And then for Walmart, Best Buy, we would do three letters in the front, or you could do, it could be random letters. It doesn't have to be GSH. It can be ABC, GHF, it can be whatever. Sorry. And then 123 John Doe Street. And then for the line two, which is apartment, where, an apartment where this is where you would put your apartment information. You could do apartment 1 through 50. I would recommend 1 through 50. It doesn't you could do apartment 2B, apartment 2C, it really varies, but I don't like doing over just um I don't know. It's just a preference, I guess. And then the light jig, what I was talking about earlier, for Target and Pokemon Center and Amazon, if it comes to it, would be 123 John Doe Street. You would change the street over here. You have street, ST, STR. However many variations you can make out of street, that's what I would recommend per profile. And then line two, it would just be super basic apartment 50, or you could just do unit two, unit three, whatever. I don't know if that was clear. If you guys have any questions, just let me know because uh, jigging was a little confusing for me at first. So I understand if anyone's confused. So yeah, now we have the providers for the proxy server and accounts. We will have this a list for you guys. So if you guys want to check So here we have for server Rakdog, XYZ, Puma servers. You know, we'll have the list for you guys so you can check it out for yourselves once this VC is over. And then finally, how to sell. Personally, when I get a lot of inventory, and I like to use cash out groups just because it makes it super easy to just ship out all in one package. Uh, Label won't be as much just because package. You know, you don't have to calculate and kind of see and add up how many people owe you this amount of money. So it's super easy if you just sell everything to one person. The only problem with these cash out buyers is that their prices are lower than what you would get from, let's say, TCG Player, eBay, or even Facebook Marketplace. But it's the convenience factor, and sometimes it's nice to pay for convenience. Um, and then we have Facebook Marketplace. Typically, if you have a lot of Pokemon in stock, so post a picture of, I don't know, 50 ETBs, you're gonna get a ton of. It's just like that. People will hate, but you gotta respect it. But yeah, they have the best prices. So if you do find a buyer for Facebook Marketplace, you could even network with your local card shops. Um, they typically are on Facebook Marketplace trying to buy stuff for their shop. So you can find some, even you could even find some bulk buyers through it. Then we have eBay and TCG Player. Both of these sites you could pretty much sell your product at market, but the difference between eBay and TCG Player is kind of eBay is everything obviously, and the TCG Player is more focused on cards and TCG like it says in the but their fees are pretty heavy, so that's why I kind of stay away from this, and also tax reasons, because you do get a form. And for Facebook Marketplace, if you just accept cash, I hope no IRS agents are in here, but yeah. Um, the fee for eBay, I believe, is 13 or 15%, so it's pretty steep. 13 to 15% of your sale price. So yeah, it's pretty steep. And then, like I mentioned before, local stores, you can find those through Google, Apple Maps, whatever, or even Facebook Marketplace. People are always buying. Um, yeah, I mean, if you guys have any questions, just drop it in the chat, or ask away, because I know it was a lot of information, so I understand it can be pretty confusing at first.
Yeah, if you have questions, you can also DM me or just ping me in chat, ping Emilio.
Hmm.
Um, just don't underestimate reselling. I know people who makes 100 grand, 200 grand just from reselling, and we list all these Pokemon because Pokemon is the easiest to cop right now. But there's like Disney, there's tops, there's sports cards, there's collectibles, and they're all resellable. Some even have a higher return versus Pokemon. So just don't underestimate reselling. And once you learn how to bot, you can bot whatever you want. You can monitor prices on the retail sites that we showed because these retail sites are where all the stock is going, basically. So if you can find like a certain item or category, you can just make a ton of money on
Yep.
eBay, local, things like that.